What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the TV Toycast YouTube channel. And today we are unboxing from Epic Toys in the Wrestling Megastars line. It is the one and only Atsushi Onita. In some cases, and I think very hard to argue this one, perhaps the king of the deathmatch, at least in Japan for a number of years. Onita, definitely a unique addition to the line. Not one I was certainly expecting at all. In fact, I believe... the timeline's a little foggy for me on this, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was announced initially from Cella, who Epic Toys kind of took over from Cella, and of course they made the figure immensely better, so I'm glad to finally get it. Onita, I think his first American-released figure, although technically this is a UK figure. I believe he more recently had a Junk Shop Dog Popey-style figure as well, but not a lot of stuff for Onita out there, so definitely cool to get this. This may not be for everybody. In fact, I could see this being an easy pass for a lot of people, but me personally, I was happy to get it. I love Japanese wrestling. A huge fan of Japanese wrestling, in fact. I want more Japanese wrestlers, so if you're an independent toy maker out there, make some more Japanese guys. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Of course, we got the typical Hasbro-style carding with the Wrestling Megastars logo, Wrestling Megastars right there. We've got a nice picture of Onita, kind of the action figure style pose, and his signature, which is always, of course, kind of fun with the Japanese signature. Epic Toys Onita underneath, 18 plus. Slip card packaging on this one will be a very easy one to open. In fact, one you can keep, on card if you want to very easily, or put it back, as a matter of fact. Got a cutout bio card there, which is kind of cool. And, of course, the rest of, I believe this is Series 3. Is that right? I think this is Series 3. Of course, we unboxed Boris Yukov and Bobby the Brain Heenan on the channel. I did not buy Eddie Guerrero. Didn't feel like I needed it. And I'm a big fan of Eddie Guerrero, but it just didn't feel like he was necessary with all the Mattel releases. I was like, I think I'm good on that one. Oddly enough, the next wave, Wave 4, I have gotten in as well, and I didn't order Ric Flair. For whatever reason, I'm buying 3 of the 4 of the Epic Toys releases, and I don't really know why that is. It's not necessarily something I'm doing on purpose. Like, well, one, I'm not going to buy it. I guess the Flair didn't wow me, and I think it also came on the heels of getting the Zombie Sailor Toys Flair, so maybe I felt like I didn't need it at the time. I don't know. And the Flair is still available, I believe, so I could get it at some point, which I may. We'll see what happens. But Onita here, 5'11", weight 218 pounds, from Nagasaki, Japan. Deathmatch pioneer Atsushi Onita is no stranger to violence, wrestling for over 50 years. Is that accurate? Wow. Onita still finds himself being battered with barbed wire and exploding rings. Of course, we got the concept art, the sculpt, a bunch of people involved in this to make it happen, which is definitely cool. Officially licensed for Epic Toys, of course. Again, a lot of people are doing retros. In fact, Epic Toys, I think just this week, I think it was even today as I record this, maybe yesterday, they announced a bunch of new 2-packs. 2 versions of the Nasty Boys are coming. The Islanders are coming, and the Beverly Brothers. And that's on the heels of Title Run Toys announcing the Beverly Brothers. So, again, you have to kind of vote with your wallet. But I know Epic Toys recently also announced the Barry Horowitz, which looks pretty cool. But a lot of people probably that wanted a Barry Horowitz picked him up from KWK. So, some people may need both. Some people not. I think it's an interesting thing, and I don't necessarily think it's real good business to have the same guys, but I wonder if they even know. Like, at a certain point, I could see these guys signing with 12 companies at this point just to say, yeah, I want all the money I can get. But in reality, I do think you kind of hurt your brand. Now, I do think it would be smart for some of these talents to say, okay, you can make me from this look, or you can make me from that look. But again, everybody's wanted Hasbro Beverly Brothers for years, right? They were one of the big notable omissions from the original Hasbro line. And I think they had some runs in WCW. I know they did as in like the late 90s, kind of, during the NWO era, where they were just Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom. So, I guess you could do something like that, but it's not going to be as popular, of course. So, we'll see what happens. But definitely a cool figure. Back to Onita. I like this one a lot. Kind of has the Jake the Snake Roberts style pose to him. Definitely you can see where that's inspired by it, which I think is a good choice. And like I said, Onita is a very toyetic guy for a guy who wasn't the most overly stylized character. He definitely has something about him that pulls you in. And I've said that about a few different figures where it's like they're toyetic even though their look is not crazy. Another one is King Kong Bundy. Very, very basic look, but when you look at him as a figure, like, wow, that is really cool. So, and I think, like I said, Onita, I haven't seen him from a bunch of other companies, but I would like to see it. I think it'd be cool to see some see Onita represented in other toy lines. One that I would have to say would be fun. What if we got an Onita big rubber guy? Who would be into that? I think that would be cool. I would buy an Onita big rubber guy, but let's take a look at him. Of course, we got a nice solid movement on the arms here. Both of them, I mean, definitely inspired by Jake the Snake. There's no doubt about it. It's got the pullback punch style in the arm, which Jake was always good with this arm because he could do the DDT or hold the snake. It was perfect. Got neck movement there. We got the headband, of course, underneath, where it's just painted on. That's not the best. Usually you can actually kind of tell it's just a painted wet square, so I don't know if that's the best look, but it's not too bad. Articulation at the waist, of course. We got the white boots. Onita on the back. Like I said, not the most overly crazy outfit, but it worked. Also, let's be honest, this is not really what you would call deathmatch wrestling gear. But I guess when you kind of come up with something like that, you don't really know what else to wear. But deathmatch is a lot more popular nowadays, I would say, than back then. I mean, I remember back in the late 90s, probably the early 2000s, I would say. I went to a store called FYE. You guys remember FYE? I don't think they're even around anymore. Before that, they were Camelot Music, and it may have actually still been Camelot Music. But it was a store in the mall, and I bought an FMW DVD. I was like, what is this? I got to know more about this. And I was kind of like overtaken by it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But, FMW at the time was, only really known as, like, people knew who Hayabusa was, and they probably knew Onita, and they probably knew Terry Funk and Cactus Jack did stuff over there. But other than that, they probably weren't very well known. So it was very interesting to see that style of wrestling and seeing guys like Leatherface and finding out, oh, that was Corporal Kirshner. It's like, what? And we're seeing like Terry Gordy was over there and a bunch of other talents that you would not expect. In fact, I think the King of the Deathmatch, Dan Severn, was on that card. Obviously he wasn't doing Deathmatch, but he was on that card, so it's like, wait a minute, what? Like, it's so crazy to think about that. And again, a lot of that was kind of like lost treasure back in the day. Obviously nowadays with YouTube and everything else, it's a little easier to come by that stuff. But back in the day, like, tape trading was real because that was the only way to see some of this stuff. So getting an FMW DVD in an American store was pretty wild at the time. It really was. And, of course, they also did, like, XPW DVDs, which both of those companies were featured on Dark Side of the Ring at one point. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You be the judge, of course. But all in all, this is a really cool figure. This is a cool retro. And like I said, I'm all about anything that's a little bit outside the box. Like we're seeing it now. Like I mentioned, the Beverly Brothers. Now 2 companies have them, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the end of it. I bet other companies have them as well. And I think it's one of those things where, why wouldn't they sign with companies? Why wouldn't they go out there to make that money? But how many people are going to continue to buy Beverly Brothers? Are people going to buy them from both companies? Are they going to buy them from 3 companies? I don't know. I can't be the answer. Now, if they're different styles, would I love to see the Beverly Brothers sign with Matt Maniacs in the Nerd Closet? 100%. Would I love to see the Beverly Brothers sign with Major to get some big rubber guys? Absolutely. But multiple retros, I don't know if that's the best business model. But I guess we'll see. Time will tell on that. At the same time, a lot of figures are being thrown at us right now. It's a big time in the figure world. And obviously, if you watch this channel at all, you see that, I like things like He-Man and Masters of the Universe. I like Star Wars. I like the big rubber guys, like I mentioned. I like DC Multiverse. I like Marvel Legends and stuff like that. And I kind of go in and out of fandoms a little bit, but a lot of that is going to be hard to appease when it's multiple retros from multiple companies. So we'll see what happens. But I also think the first one to market might get our money on this one. But we will see, I guess. But like I said, I think more guys like Onita here would do better for companies. And the reason I say that is because this is the only place to get him is Epic Toys. If you want a retro Atsushi Onita, Epic Toys is the place to get it. And the next wave, they came up with Dr. Death Steve Williams. And as of right now, that's the only place to get Dr. Death Steve Williams. I would love for them to, if they could somehow sign Terry Gordy to give us that Miracle Violence connection. Oh, chef's kiss. That would be so much fun. Also, how cool would those guys be in the Matt Maniacs line, to go with your Steiner brothers, the Miracle Violence connection? Sign me up all day long. But like I said, I think getting some more obscure talents will always be fun. I was just thinking today, whatever happened to Jerry Flynn, right? He was kind of a mainstay in late 90s WCW. I think like Lightning Foot Jerry Flynn. Not to be confused with the new effing show, Jerry Lynn. But no, Jerry Flynn. He wore like the karate pants. He had like the power mullet of the 90s. Very, very tall guy, probably 6'5", 6'6". Had some pretty competitive matches with like Goldberg and a few others back in the day. But man, I would love for a retro company to get Jerry Flynn. How cool would that be? I would be all about a Jerry Flynn. Let's make some Jerry Flynn figures. I want it to happen. I think that would be super cool. Just because it's such a random guy from WCW, but everyone's like, oh yeah, Jerry Flynn, I remember him. Like, it's one of those wild things. But he did some MMA. I looked him up. Oddly enough, I pulled up his Wikipedia and I was reading about it. It said he has a WWE Legends deal. I really don't believe that's the case. But if we get a Jerry Flynn Elite, you bet your bottom dollar it will be unboxed here on the channel. I just thought that was so funny. I'll post a picture if it still says that, because I was like, wait a minute, no way. But I pulled it up, and sure enough, it said Jerry Flynn is under a WWE Legends deal. But like I said, I really doubt that that's the case. But I think he'd go great with Epic. I think he'd go great with Zombie Sailor or Grapplers and Gimmicks. Give me all the Jerry Flynn figures. Give me all the Onita figures. I love it. I think it's really, really fun. But what do you guys think? Drop it in the comments down below. Do you think this Onita figure is worth picking up? I think it's fun. It's probably not for everybody, especially if you're not a Japanese wrestling fan or a deathmatch fan. But to me, I think it's great, and I'm very, very happy to have it in the collection, and I think Epic's doing a great job. Cella had a couple of hiccups back in the day, as we all know, but I think Epic has really turned the corner, and I know at one point I was like, I don't need to collect all these retro companies, but Epic changed my mind. That is no exaggeration. With the Powers of Pain, and for this wave, it was like, okay, yeah, I need to grab these, because these are really, really good figures, and I'm glad I did. Of course, I believe Onita may still be available over on Figure Collections. I'm not 100% sure on that. If he is available, I will post it right here. But I hope you guys enjoy it, and hopefully you enjoy this video. And check out my other unboxing videos. This past week, I had some really good unboxing videos. On Monday, I unboxed Slappy from the Night of the Living Dummy and the Goosebumps Trick or Treat Studios line. Check that out. That was on Monday. Really, really fun, of course. On Wednesday, I unboxed Manny Faces from the Mattel Masters of the Universe Masterverse line. Really loving the Masterverse figures. I think those are super fun and a super underrated line. And it's getting more popular, so I could see other people kind of diving into that. That was on Wednesday. And then on Friday, Matt Hardy from the Big Rubber Guys, speaking of that line, unboxed that as well. And then this week, it's already been a fun week. Batgirl from Batman the Animated Series and McFarlane Toys. That was on Monday. And then Wednesday, the Range Brachian figure from the Cerazoic Warriors from Boss Fight Studio. Really, really cool as well, so check that out. And, of course, check out my other shows. Tales of the Toy Box, dropping once a month. Episode 5 has been filmed and is going through the editing process right now, and it should be up very, very soon, which will be all about Masters of the Universe. Very excited about that. And then, of course, What's on the Pegs, which is kind of my weekly toy hunt video, which is always a lot of fun. And then, of course, also check out the TB Toycast podcast every Thursday with me and Travis. We have a different main event covering a different specific toy line, as well as diving into all the news and happenings of the week. We do that every single Thursday, so check that out as well. Thank you guys very much for checking out the TB Toycast YouTube channel. That's Atsushi Onita, and we will see you in the toy aisle.
Yeah. One more time. It ain't over till I say it's over. So lock the cage up, cause this is a takeover. The wait's over. If this the final time we meet, then you'll be on your back on my feet. Then I'll tip the cage over as a hangover. I'm super fly so I can splash off the top. And I can shut down the shot.